Bright eyes stared at the jade pendant. Even though Qinmu was only 11 or 12 years old, he already understood many things. Another time that Qinmu went with Granny C to help deliver a baby, unlike the other tragic outcome, it went smoothly. The sight of the loving family warmed his heart. This led Qinmu to ask how he'd been born and where his parents were. However, Granny C wasn't able to answer him. She could only tell him that she had found him in the river, and that the jade pendant had been bundled up with him. This was the reason why Qinmu treasured this jade pendant. He hoped that he could one day find his parents with it and ask them why they abandoned him. After some time, Qinmu put the jade pendant back around his neck where he usually wore it. His expression became peaceful as he stored this bizarre incident deep in his heart, along with the mystery of the pendant. Granny C, who had kept her distance behind him until that point, returned to their house just before he did. The next day, Old Ma, blind, cripple and mute, continued hunting beasts to refine the blood of the 4 spirits for Qinmu. These 4 dangerous men had essentially swept the area around the village clean, a radius of several hundred miles to be precise, so they had to travel further to capture the spirit beasts that provided blood for refinement. Village chief had trouble moving around on his own. Apothecary frequently had to go out to gather herbs. Butcher was always bitter and went crazy from time to time. And Deaf was only interested in calligraphy and paintings. Therefore, Granny C was the only person who could keep Qinmu company while he cultivated. However, Granny C wasn't always in the village either. As a tailor and a midwife, the neighboring villages often requested clothes from her, or asked her to help deliver a baby. Early this morning, Granny C left the village, and Apothecary went to gather herbs. Butcher and Deaf carried village chief over to the village's entrance and placed him there. Then they both went their separate ways, one sharpening his knives and the other painting. Overcome with boredom, Qinmu went to the riverbank. Ever since his cow had turned into a woman and gotten herself stabbed to death by Cripple, his chores had diminished tremendously. Standing by the river, he took a deep breath, his chest swelling with air. He then circulated his vital qi and his chest slowly returned to normal size. He had yet to exhale. Instead, he used his vital qi to nourish his lungs, making them exceptionally tough. Then he compressed the air in his lungs, forcing it to shrink by 10 times. Qinmu continued to breathe in and his chest still didn't expand. The moment he reached his limit, however, he rushed forward, bursting forth like an arrow shot from a bow. Qinmu sprinted across the river like a hurricane, splitting the water into 2 waves that erupted outward in his wake. Then, all of a sudden, gleaming metal flashed above the river. Qinmu had taken out his pig slaughtering knife as he ran. It shimmered through the air, flashing like dragons swimming through the air. This was Butcher's pig slaughtering knife skill. Like its creator, this knife skill felt bitter and possessed a wild, domineering aura that refused to bow to the heavens and the earth. The knife shone as it swung back and forth, capable of crushing everything in its path. Without warning, the glimmer of metal disappeared as Qinmu returned the pig slaughtering knife to its usual place in the sheath on his back. Transitioning to Old Ma's fist skill, he directed his vital qi to his arms and hands. Clenching a hand into a fist, Qinmu began to resemble the Yangtze River traversing a plateau, rushing through the sky, and gushing into the sea like a never-ending torrent of water. Thunderclap 8 strikes first form, spring thunder on the lonely East Sea. Throwing punch after punch, a scene of a raging river flowing into the thunderous waves of an enormous sea appeared inside of Qinmu's mind. An essence similar to that took shape in his fist skill as well. However, the moment it did, his fist suddenly opened up mid-punch, his fingers and palm trembling uncontrollably. The air in front of his palm compressed rapidly, then exploded outward, disrupting the surface of the river and sending water all around him. It still isn't complete, Qinmu thought as he ran. I still can't achieve thunder in palm. Disappointment weighed upon Qinmu. The lowest level of Old Ma's Thunderclap 8 strikes required the practitioner to achieve thunder in palm. Every punch needed to burst forth the booming thunder that possessed astonishing power and could seize a person's soul. It would then become a divine art capable of being trained to the highest level where one could control thunder and lightning with their hands, a level that Qinmu was nowhere near reaching. As Qinmu continued sprinting, he grabbed a bamboo staff from its place strapped to his back. Stabbing the area around him, He wasn't displaying an ordinary staff skill. The skill that Blind taught him was actually a spear skill. His bamboo staff resembled a great spear that churned the water of the river like a raging dragon. Every swirl, every poke, every flick, and every thrust would be accompanied by a burst of water. Once he was satisfied, Qin Mu traded his bamboo staff for a huge iron hammer, replacing the latter's position on his back with the former. Then he performed a series of strikes as a display of the hammer skill that Mute the blacksmith had taught him. This hammer skill was simple and crude, but it possessed several tons of power. Each strike was extremely heavy which, along with Qin Mu's agile running, embodied two extremes of martial ability. After sprinting and practicing each of his skills for a considerable amount of time, Qin Mu finally felt that his vital qi was beginning to run low. His body started to feel exhausted, his strength nearly depleted. Looking at his surroundings, he discovered that he had gone dozens of miles downstream, which was quite far from disabled elderly village. I actually ran this far without realizing it, he thought. Qin Mu continued to survey his surroundings until he noticed an island in the middle of the river. The violent water of the river surged around it. The sight intrigued him, and he immediately rushed over to it. A few moments later, Qin Mu stepped onto the island, finally reaching dry land. This island wasn't very big. Considering its position in the middle of the river, it resembled a small hill lush with vegetation, about 1,000 yards in diameter and around 130 yards tall. On this island was a dense forest in which only the sound of water could be heard. Deep within that forest, not far from where Qin Mu was a dilapidated ancient temple. Walking into the forest and toward the temple, Qin Mu could see that the structure was in shambles and had cobwebs everywhere. It clearly hadn't been maintained for a long time. However, it could still serve as a good spot to take a break in. Qin Mu stopped in front of the temple. One of the doors that made up its entrance had collapsed, revealing a dim light within. He could see that a towering Buddha statue covered in gilded leaves stood inside of the temple, radiating a golden glow. However, since no one had been here for a very long time, most of the gold on the leaves had peeled off to reveal copper enamel. Peculiar, squiggly writing could be seen on the copper. It looked as if the writing could be drawings of tadpoles. Gigantic, thick chains wrapped around the Buddha's body, restraining it to where it was. Following the length of the chains with his gaze, Qin Mu saw that they extended from the small temple, stretched all the way to the shore of this island, and plunged deep into the raging river. How strange! Why are these chains tying down this giant Buddha? Qin Mu thought to himself. Grandpa Blind said there was some rule about lighting incense before entering a temple. Since I don't have any incense, I can only rest just outside the entrance. Qin Mu cleared his throat, bowed, and paid his respects. This little one is from disabled elderly village which is located near the river. I have come across your temple and would like to rest my legs here for the time being. If I have alarmed the owner of this land, I am deeply sorry. He hesitated a moment before continuing to recite a prayer that Blind had taught him. Since I was young, this little one has weak kidneys and frail body. My primordial yang has long since dispersed. If a goddess sister is present in this temple, please don't hurt me. Blind was an old and experienced wanderer, so Qin Mu firmly believed his words. There shouldn't have been any problem with reciting the prayer just like Blind had taught him. After finishing his prayer, Qin Mu sat down on the stone steps to the temple. He removed the iron boots from his feet and the iron weights from his calves, then began to recover his stamina using his breathing technique. He had been wearing both the boots and the weights the entire time he sprinted across the river. This set had been forged by Mute the blacksmith and weighed much more than his previous set had. Suddenly, gentle laughter echoed from behind Qin Mu. You said something pretty interesting, a feminine voice said. Ichem, I guess I won't eat you anymore. Oh well. Qin Mu immediately turned around to see who had spoken. Sitting on the palm of the Buddha, laughing at him, was a little girl that looked to be around his age. She was barefoot and wore a simple dress. Her hair had been done up in 3 braids. 2 thin ones came down to dangle in front of her chest, and the third thicker one hung behind her. Her legs hung over the edge of the Buddha's hand, swinging back and forth. The golden bracelets around her ankles jingled with each movement, complementing her laughter and making it sound even more beautiful like the sunshine of early spring. Qin Mu quickly got to his feet and said, How may I address goddess sister? What goddess sister? The girl jumped down from the Buddha's hand and gave him a wide smile, revealing her small canine teeth. My name is Xianqinger and I live nearby. I've never seen a goddess sister though. What is your name? Seeing the girl's beautiful smile, Qinmu figured she couldn't be bad and sighed in relief. My name is Qinmu, which means the boy who herds cows. Qin is my surname. The elders in the village would always let me herd the cows. Oh. Xianqinger walked to behind the remaining temple door and pulled it open so she could get a closer look at him. She then looked behind him and giggled. Where's your cow then? Qinmu hesitated for a moment before saying, it transformed into a woman, so there no longer is a cow. Such an interesting thing can still happen? Xianqinger asked in astonishment, then became excited. How did it transform? Can you transform? Qinmu shook his head. I am currently unable to, but my granny can. I thought you knew. Xianqinger replied in disappointment. What other interesting things have you seen? Quickly, come in and tell me all about them. Just as Qinmu moved his leg to step forward and enter the temple, his gaze went past Xianqinger and noticed a few white bones sticking out from behind the Buddha statue. A bad feeling suddenly appeared in his heart. His leg came to a stop in midair, and he hesitantly said, Grandpa Blind told me to always light incense and pay respects to the Buddha before entering a temple. Since I don't have any incense with me, it's best for me to stay out here. Just come in. Xianqinger smiled sweetly. I think it would be better for me to stay outside. Qinmu blinked his eyes and moved his foot back, giving her a smile that was much more sincere than the ones that cripple would wear. Why don't you come out instead? Then I'll be able to tell you about some fun, interesting stuff. Xianqinger's gaze wavered slightly, and she bit her lips and giggled. I know some shameful things that only a boy and a girl can do. Come in and I'll teach you about them. Compared to her bright, youthful demeanor from before, her sweet breath and charming breath now seemed slightly seductive. Qinmu's face turned red, and he took short, ragged breaths. I've had weak kidneys since I was young, he said stubbornly. Get in here right now. A guttural roar came out from the little girl's mouth. Xianqinger's face twisted in anger and became extremely hideous. Her small, girlish form began to bulge and swell as a rattling sound emanated from the lower half of her body. Bony legs pierced through her dress from the inside, extending down to the floor and struggling find purchase. Armored plates of bone rose from within her body, breaking through the skin of her back and making her bend in strange ways. The bones of her arms and hands broke through her skin to reveal extremely sharp claws instead of finger bones. Bone spurs that resembled deer antlers protruded from the back of her head, her face distorting into a visage of unspeakable terror. Her body elongated and grew thicker until it resembled a giant centipede made of bone. Get in here right now, she shouted, her ear-splitting voice resembling countless women screaming their hearts out. Qinmu looked up at this bone centipede, amazement plastered on his face, before shaking his head and saying, No! The monstrous insect bellowed in rage, its myriad legs skittering against the floor as it moved in circles and attempted to dive through the entrance to the temple. However, every time the monster tried, the entire island would tremble as the chains wrapped around the Buddha shook and rattled. Qinmu immediately looked over at the chains that led down to the river. They ran from the shore of the island all the way to the temple and wrapped around the gigantic golden Buddha statue. The other end of the chains were then secured to the monster's body. The chains were connected to golden shackles that adorned the monster's body. Every time it tried to dive through the entrance to the temple, the chains would pull it back. No matter how much the monster bared its fangs and brandished its claws, it wasn't able to take even half a step out of the temple. Remaining calm in the midst of this chaos, Qinmu sat facing away from the temple and cultivated the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to recover his stamina. After a while, the commotion behind him settled down. Unable to break free of the chains, the monster turned around to shout at the golden Buddha. You goddamn baldy monk! You're the one keeping me here. Are you going to starve me to death? This child didn't even offer any incense, so why won't you let me eat him? The monster circled the Buddha statue in frustration, knocking down the countless white bones that sat behind it. In spite of this, the statue remained motionless. Qinmu silently snuck a glance behind him, then quickly turned back in shock. All of those bones were human bones. It was impossible to tell how many people had died in this rundown temple. Soon enough, the monster in the temple calmed down, picked up all of the bones, and put them back in their hiding place behind the golden Buddha statue. Then it went back to the entrance of the temple and stared at Qin Mu with bloodshot eyes. "Baldy monk, this is meat at our doorstep, you understand? Meat at our doorstep," it said, staring at the back of Qin Mu's head as saliva streamed from its mouth. Sometime later, it changed back to the form of the little girl Xian Qinger. With one strap of her dress sliding from her shoulder, she giggled. "Come on, young man. Let's do shameful things together." Qin Mu had a very strong will, so he managed to turn a deaf ear to her seduction. When his stamina and vital qi finally recovered, he felt that today's cultivation had resulted in significant improvement. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly, and he figured he might as well gather his vital qi and use the devil chant to try breaking the spirit embryo wall once more. Chikaduo samoyi bori bori samoyi. Chikaduo bori samoyi. Just as Qin Mu's vital qi began rushing towards his spirit embryo wall, a dull rumbling came from inside of the ancient temple. Rays of bloody light ran through the strange markings on the copper enamel of the Buddha's golden leaves. These rays covered the leaves, making them release a brilliant golden glow. Boom! In the midst of the violent vibrations, the golden Buddha statue covered in gilded leaves opened its eyes and radiated an overwhelming aura. An astonishing shout suddenly boomed in Qin Mu's ears. "The heretical path of the devils! How dare you be so insolent in front of yours truly and chant the devil incantation? You really are undisciplined and unruly. I shall use my Buddha incantation to subdue you." The expression of frustration on the monster girl's face transformed into one of utter disbelief. The golden Buddha grabbed onto the chains and pulled the helpless monster back to him. Bat hump! The monster fell to its knees in front of the Buddha statue, unable to move, and began groveling in the face of the Buddha's imposing pressure. The golden Buddha opened its mouth and recited a series of unknown words reminiscent of an actual Buddha chanting a mantra. "Om Mani Padme Hum! Om Mani Padme Hum! Om Mani Padme Hum!" Upon hearing the Buddha voice, the monster felt as if an invisible force were crushing its soul, causing it to whimper in pain. Outside the temple, the Buddha's incantation blew Qin Mu away and he started to panic. However, at this moment his vital qi had just reached the spirit embryo wall. At the same time, the God voice descended from the 9 heavens as if a god were chanting its own incantation. The God voice and the Buddha voice swept through Qin Mu at the same time, resonating loudly as both clashed with each other, greatly reducing the pressure on Qin Mu's vital qi. "What a great opportunity," he thought. Reacting instantly, Qin Mu yelled the devil chant. "Chikaduo samoyi bori bori samoyi. Chikaduo bori samoyi. Chikaduo samoyi bori bori samoyi. Chikaduo bori samoyi." The Buddha voice reverberated from the temple, increasing its volume. "Om Mani Padme Hum! Om Mani Padme Hum!" At the same time, the God voice from the 9 heavens above reverberated from the center of Qin Mu's brow, also growing even louder. "Guanming Duanjing Wuasai Jiang Yu. Tianshi Dui 11 Wei Ling Nu." As the three voices mixed together, the force inhibiting his vital qi from striking his spirit embryo wall suddenly vanished. In a burst of energy, Qin Mu used his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, gathered all of his vital qi, and directed it towards his spirit embryo wall. Whoosh! Like enormous waves of water from a raging river pounding against the shore, an enormous crash resounded from Qin Mu's spirit embryo wall. It collapsed with a loud rumble, and his vital qi majestically flooded into his spirit embryo divine treasure. Immediately after that, frenzied vital qi gushed from his spirit embryo divine treasure and instantly spread throughout his entire body. Surging vital qi even filled his hair and skin, caused every strand of hair on his body to stand on end. The spirit embryo wall had been completely obliterated. Wall break success. This result left Qin Mu dumbfounded and he stopped reciting the devil chant. The God voice unexpectedly disappeared, and without an opponent, the Buddha voice from the golden Buddha inside the temple also came to a halt. The Buddha statue returned to its normal unmoving state. That left the monster laying prone in front of the statue. The invisible wall at the center of Qin Mu's eyebrows that had prevented him from awakening his spirit embryo divine treasure had finally been destroyed. Nothing obstructed him from seeing it. I actually managed to break the wall? Qin Mu couldn't contain the excitement in his heart and released a cry of joy in front of the temple. He had drunk an immeasurable amount of blood of the four spirits which, even up to this point, hadn't helped him awaken his overlord body. Now, however, he actually managed to break the wall by having the God, Devil, and Buddha voices clash. This filled his small chest with a great sense of accomplishment. After some time, Qin Mu finally calmed down and thought to himself, Spirit Embryo Wall. Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure. Since it's a divine treasure, the gods must have left something precious for me. Closing his eyes, Qin Mu could see the brilliant golden rays in the space at the center of his eyebrows. As his consciousness carefully entered the mysterious divine treasure, he saw that the interior of the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure was actually a bizarre space filled with brilliant golden rays. It looked like an extremely ancient paradise. The Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure resembled a magical land made of a sea of light. As his consciousness delved further into the divine treasure, the light nourished it and made it feel extremely comfortable. However, despite having his consciousness fly throughout this sea of golden light for a long time, he didn't discover anything. Isn't this my Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure? Why isn't there anything in here? Did the gods take my treasure away? Qin Mu was extremely confused. Now that the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure had been opened, where was the divine treasure? Then, out of nowhere, a towering stone statue came into view. It stood in the middle of the sea of light, isolated. Why is there a stone statue in my Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure? Could this be my divine treasure? This sudden development confounded Qin Mu. Only when his consciousness fluttered around the stone statue, sizing it up, did he notice a strange phenomenon. He had mistakenly thought that the statue was made of stone when in reality it wasn't. This stone statue looked like it was sculpted from stone, yet it wasn't. It resembled jade, yet it wasn't made from jade either. The statue sparkled and appeared translucent, yet it radiated a soft aura. The most puzzling part of the statue was that it bore a remarkable resemblance to him. However, it actually resembled Qin Mu when he was a toddler around 2 to 3 years of age. There a sculpture of me in my Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure? Could it be that the gods knew what I would look like, sculpted a statue of me, and hid it inside of my Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure? The idea astounded Qin Mu. Then, as his consciousness gently came into contact with the statue, he lost all control over it. His consciousness entered the statue. Qin Mu's vision suddenly went dark, and when regained control of his consciousness, he discovered that it was in statue. What just happened? He thought to himself. Qin Mu opened his eyes and tried using them to look around, realizing that he actually could. He then tried to turn his head and discovered that his consciousness had won. He looked down and noticed that his consciousness had merged with the statue, and that the statue's limbs were his limbs. A person's consciousness was supposed to be formless, but his currently had a tangible shape. This situation was incredibly strange. Qin Mu felt as if this statue was a kind of spirit. It seemed like energy or a soul, yet it was neither. He found it extremely difficult to explain the feeling it gave him. Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure. Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure. Could this statue be my spirit embryo and only be awakened if I merge my consciousness with it? Is this what Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure means? Qin Mu blinked the eyes of his spirit embryo as he understood many things in that instant. Of the 7 great divine treasures of the human body, the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure was the first. However, this divine treasure normally lay sealed. Since ordinary people couldn't unseal it, they naturally wouldn't be able to awaken their spirit embryo. The Spirit Embryo Divine Treasures of people with spirit bodies, on the other hand, would already be opened. As a result, they would only need matching spirit blood to guide their consciousness to their spirit embryo to awaken it. This meant that a person's spirit embryo could contain a person's consciousness. Maybe the gods didn't bestow spirit embryos upon humanity. Maybe they had purposely sealed them away instead. Thinking up to that point, Qin Mu suddenly felt his vital qi flood into the sea of light from outside his Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure. His tiny spirit embryo absorbed traces of vital qi, and as the vital qi went in and out of its nose, it gave Qin Mu a very soothing feeling. Every time the spirit embryo took a breath, his vital qi became much purer. In addition to that, Qin Mu realized that his spirit embryo was also absorbing the golden light of the sea around it. As the light traveled in and out of his body alongside his vital qi, it would mingle with the vital qi. However, Qin Mu wasn't sure what that did. He tried to make his spirit embryo stand up, but discovered that this little baby couldn't move much stand. How do I move my spirit embryo? I should go back to the village to ask village chief, Granny C, and everyone about it. Halfway through this thought, Qin Mu's consciousness suddenly returned to his body, and he opened his eyes. Violent coughing could be heard from inside the temple. The monster that resembled a young girl hadn't died yet. It was kneeling in front of the Buddha statue, coughing up huge amounts of blood. After a moment of contemplation, Qin Mu walked into the temple. Seeing Qin Mu actually enter the temple completely surprised the monster, and it struggled to get up. Walking towards it, Qin Mu said the devil incantation. Chikaduo samoyi bori bori samoyi. Chikaduo bori samoyi. How dare you continued being insolent, you evil creature. The monster girl's skin crawled as it heard the golden Buddha behind it begin to move again. Golden rays of light radiated from it, and the chains around it started to rattle, forcing the monster to grovel on the floor again. And ma and I be mi hong. The Buddha voice rang out, causing the monster to spit blood and go limp. Then Qin Mu stopped imitating the devil voice's chant, and the golden Buddha recited its incantation one more time before going silent as well. The monster at the foot of the Buddha statue was breathing heavily, and just as it was about to try getting up, Qin Mu started chanting the devil incantation again. The monster shrieked in fear and immediately tried to hide behind the Buddha statue. However, it didn't expect Qin Mu to stop chanting after uttering just the first two words. "You're a devil!" the monster shouted in a hoarse voice, peeking its head out to gaze at Qin Mu where he stood in the hall of the temple. "You're the devil! You're the most vicious, evil devil!" Qin Mu didn't respond to the monster's insults, and instead slowly walked forward until he arrived in front of the Buddha statue. After hesitating for a moment, he still decided to follow the advice of Blind, who was an experienced wanderer, and paid his respects to it. "This little one has weak kidneys and a frail body. My primordial yang has long since dispersed." When the monster girl heard him say this, it coughed up blood and laughed, its eyes bulging in disbelief. "Little one, you're telling the Buddha statue that you have weak kidneys and a frail body? It won't help you." Qin Mu stared at the monster blankly. "Chikaduo samoyi." The Buddha statue trembled and yelled, "Evil creature! Stop chanting!" the monster cried, promptly begging for mercy. It was clearly scared out of its wits. "I beg you, stop chanting." Qin Mu stopped chanting the devil incantation, but the golden Buddha completed one round of its own incantation, causing the monster to puke blood once again. Qin Mu walked around the temple. Although he wasn't able to find anything good, the mountain of bones behind the Buddha statue still shocked him. Countless people had apparently died in this rundown temple at the hands of this monster. Hiding the bones of your victims behind the Buddha statue makes the Buddha statue your partner in crime. It helps you to cover up your mistakes and trick more people, Qin Mu said. He couldn't help but shake his head in disapproval. "If I borrow the power of the Buddha statue to exterminate you, your destruction would become its achievement instead. Therefore I will not do that." "So demon, where are all of your treasures?" "Why would I have any treasure?" the monster asked as it trembled in fear. "This baldy monk over here took everything when he trapped me here." "Chikaduo," Qin Mu began. "Stop chanting." The monster girl put on a smiling face in an attempt to please Qin Mu. "Having run this place for a few years, I did manage to plunder some good stuff while satisfying my appetite. Fine then. I'll just give them to you." Barely managing to get up off the floor, it struggled to climb to the ceiling of the temple hall. Gently pushing at a specific part of the ceiling, she revealed a hidden panel and removed it. The items stashed away in the space behind that panel came clattering to the floor. Most of the items were weapons and armor. Other than that, there were clothes, a majority of which were women's undergarments. However, considering the material of all the clothes, they looked like things that only wealthy people could afford to wear. "This is everything I have left." The monster smiled. Qin Mu frowned in disappointment. "This is it? You don't have anything like spirit pills or miraculous medicines?" "If I ever found spirit pills of miraculous medicines, I'd have ate them already. The monster stretched in a relaxed manner, the bony centipede plates within its feminine body cracking. I've been imprisoned in here for so long that I just eat everything. How could I ignore spirit pills or miraculous medicines that taste leagues better than humans? Don't underestimate these weapons, though. All of them are treasures. Good stuff called spirit weapons that can only be found within a person's 6 directions divine treasure. They're called spirit weapons because they are nurtured by a person's vital chi from birth and possess great power. Skeptical of the monster girl's claims, Qin Mu picked a goose wing knife from the pile of weaponry. This knife felt extremely heavy compared to the pig slaughtering knife strapped to his back. However, the strange thing about it was that, although his pig slaughtering knife was much larger, it weighed a lot less than the ordinary-looking knife. The goose wing knife was much longer and narrower, whereas the pig slaughtering knife was much wider and thicker. Gripping the pig slaughtering knife and brandishing it, Qin Mu hit the knives against one another with a soft clang. The pig slaughtering knife cleanly slashed through the goose wing knife's blade, the top half of which dropped to the temple's floor. The monster stared blankly at the pig slaughtering knife in Qin Mu's hand with its eyes wide open, speechless. Considerably disappointed, Qin Mu threw the goose wing knife aside. Who forged that sea cleaver-like knife of yours? The monster stuttered in surprise. For a spirit weapon that was nurtured by the vital chi of a strong practitioner in the 6 directions realm to break at a gentle touch, your knife definitely wasn't forged by an ordinary person. Qin Mu caressed the cold blade of his pig slaughtering knife, sending cold air straight into his heart and lungs. Mute the blacksmith had forged it for him. Mute was a very well-known blacksmith in this area of the Great Ruins. Everything he forged sold like hotcakes. People from other villages would often come find him and ask him to forge items like cleavers, hoes, and iron plows. That knife isn't made from ordinary metal, the monster girl cried, foaming at the mouth. It wanted to move forward to take a closer look, but it was afraid that Qin Mu would chant the devil incantation again, so it just shouted, "Try touching your knife. Is there any cold air coming from it?" If there is, it was probably made out of winter crystal iron. There is indeed cold air coming from it, Qin Mu said in astonishment, nodding his head. Why would someone use winter crystal iron to forge a cleaver-like knife? The monster cried. Someone with such excellent forging skill actually created a cleaver-like knife? What a waste of talent and materials. Qin Mu stared at the pig slaughtering knife, then strapped it to his back again. He then started collecting all of the weapons and treasures, moving them out of the rundown temple and placing them in front of its entrance. Why do you still want to take away my loot when you already have such a good weapon? The monster shouted angrily. Granny told me that I should always bring back everything I take with my own strength. Qin Mu turned around and flashed a simple smile. I took all of your items with my own strength, so I definitely have to bring them all home. This infuriated the monster so much that it wanted to die. However, it was afraid of ruining things with Qin Mu, and could only watch as the boy moved all of the treasures it had painstakingly collected. Qin Mu suddenly to look at the monster and asked, "Do you have anything like a cloth sack laying around?" "No." "Okay." Qin Mu turned away again and went outside of the temple. The monster cautiously left the great hall and walked to the entrance of the temple. It could see Qin Mu chopping at the bamboo trees in the surroundings. After a short while, he managed to use the bamboo he cut down to create a makeshift raft. Putting all of his loot onto the bamboo raft, he pushed off from the island and used a bamboo pole to maneuver back upstream. "Who raised such a horrible child?" the monster yelled, finally flying into a rage. "What is this world coming to? He even dared to ask me for a cloth sack to carry everything with. He makes me so angry I want to die." The oasis hundreds of miles downstream, Qin Mu returned to disabled elderly village before night fell. He put down the bamboo basket filled with weapons in the village, and the villagers were inevitably astonished and crowded around with inquiries. Qin Mu told them about his experience, causing Blind's complexion to slightly change, and cried out, "The temple on the oasis is restraining as a territorial-level strange beast, which is a very powerful demon who is adept at transformation. Her name is called Woman Wu. You actually ran to that temple and stole all her treasures back." Granny C also cried out, "That Woman Wu? I passed by the rundown temple once and beat her up because I saw that she had eaten too many people. In the end she hid behind the Buddha statue. The Buddha was strange and wanted to subdue me, thus I did not beat her to death. There was something very weird with the Buddha statue. I had also met her before. She's a very powerful great demon who could rival strong practitioners of 7 stars realm. Cripple asked, Muir, how did you escape from Woman Wu's hands after stealing her items? Qin Mu realized he couldn't keep it a secret anymore, and told everyone about the devil language that he had learned from the vestige in the valley. He then explained how he used the voices of God, devil and Buddha to subdue Woman Wu in its entirety. The villagers were all stumped for words hearing Qin Mu's story. After quite a while, Old Ma finally let out a breath and said, young and promising, young and promising. Cripple, Deaf and the rest all nodded their heads and raised their thumbs in endless admiration. Woman Wu, the great demon having the strength of a strong practitioner of 7 stars realm, actually got extorted and robbed by Qin Mu. How young and promising, making all of them proud by not failing to live up to their teachings. Mute picked up a few weapons and gave them a few swings before shaking his head. He gave a few hand signs which meant that the quality of these spirit weapons weren't that good and were useless. When tomorrow comes I will go over to Border Dragon City and sell these spirit weapons. I will also get some spices, fabric rolls and fine wine while I'm there. Granny C smiled. It's time to also sell my livestock. Qin Mu picked up his spirit. To Border Dragon City? He had grown up in disabled elderly village since young, and had only been allowed to go out recently. He had only heard of Border Dragon City and had never been there. We can't bring you there yet. You are still too young. Granny C shook her head. Qin Mu was disappointed and hesitated for a moment before gathering up his courage to confess. Granny C, Grandpa Ma, there is still one more thing. My overlord body has awakened. The surrounding fell silent. After a while, Old Ma, Cripple, Blind and Granny C started to celebrate while Mute kept on yapping. Only Deaf did not see what Qin Mu had said and was confused at why these old fellows had suddenly turned crazy. Until he saw Qin Mu repeating again. He then realized what Qin Mu was saying and gave out a huge laughter. Blind exclaimed loudly, Village Chief Apothecary, come quickly. The overlord body has awakened. Butcher was filled with excitement and gave a long howl towards the heavens. Village Chief Apothecary, the overlord body has finally awakened. When Qin Mu had returned to the village chief was seated in front of his house with Apothecary by his side brewing a pot of tea and pouring a cup for him. However, village chief had no limbs, therefore Apothecary had to lift the teacup to his mouth. The two frequently drink tea together in a relaxed and refined manner, living in contentment. Just as village chief was halfway through drinking his tea, he heard the shouts of Blind and Old Ma which made him spurt his tea out immediately through his nose, eyes and mouth. 2 fine water jets came spurting high up from the inside corner of his eyes. Crayak! The teacup in Apothecary's hand was also crushed into pieces, splashing the tea onto village chief's face. Staring wide-eyed at each other, they looked at each other in disbelief as their mouths slowly opened up unconsciously. Apothecary came to his senses and stuttered. Overlord body has awakened. Village chief apparently hadn't returned to his senses yet as he continued to stare blankly. Cripple limped over and nodded his head vigorously, smiling. That's right, the overlord body has awakened. I did a check just now and found out that his vital chi was 3 times denser and purer than in the morning. Furthermore, in the heart of his brows, there's an odd fluctuation as the spirit embryo awaken, which is evident that it is fusing with his consciousness. This is the sign that his spirit embryo is awakening. Qin Mu walked over and saw Apothecary's mouth spreading even bigger as if he had stuffed 2 duck eggs inside. On the other hand, there was still water leaking out from village chief's lower eyelids. He thought, Grandpa Village Chief and Grandpa Apothecary were surprised as expected, but aren't they a little too surprised? Apothecary closed his mouth and quickly asked, Muir, has your overlord body really awakened? Qin Mu nodded his head and said, It awakened when I wasn't paying any attention. Apothecary almost choked himself to death and mumbled, Awakened when he wasn't paying any attention. Village Chief finally returned to his senses and chuckled. There is no doubt that Muir is really the overlord body. I could not have deduced wrongly with my extremely profound knowledge. It's natural for him to awaken his overlord body. Coo. Apothecary had an extremely weird expression and quickly gave a few coughs to cover up. It's wonderful that the overlord body has awakened. However, Moore, you mustn't be arrogant having just awakened your overlord body. Your road of cultivation has only just begun, do you understand? Qin Mu nodded his head in agreement. Village chief smiled. What Apothecary said is right. The path of the overlord body is unusually difficult, therefore you cannot ever slack down. Apothecary, I'm feeling a little tired. Please send me back in first. Apothecary understood and sent his back into his house. Inside the house, the two old men looked at each other in dismay, and Apothecary tried his best to lower his voice after quite a while. Village chief, is Moore really the overlord body? Of course not. Village chief said resolutely. Then how did he awaken? How would I know? The two old men looked at each other in dismay again, and weren't sure how to explain Qin Mu's phenomenon. After a while, Apothecary tried to ask, could a mortal body open the spirit embryo wall? Mortal body wall break? I haven't heard of that before. Qin Mu would be the first. Village chief suddenly smiled. Apothecary, maybe Qin Mu would really become an overlord body and walk down an unordinary path. Isn't that what our goal was? Apothecary also smiled. Mortal body to overlord body. Moore had already awakened his mortal body, and the path of his overlord body has just begun. It's as if I can already see him taking out a dragon in one punch. Village chief nodded his head and smiled. Exactly. We can't say for sure, but with his spirit and will, he might even go further than we did. The two old foxes laughed together and went out of the room again. Village chief gave a cough and summoned Qin Mu over to ask him how he had awakened his spirit embryo. Qin Mu told him about how he had made use of the instant where the God voice, Devil voice and Buddha voice were fighting, and used his vital chi to break down the spirit embryo wall. With a blank look in his eyes, village chief mumbled, "There is still such a way?" He can't help but sigh with sorrow. Qin Mu's opportunity was something other people could not imitate. To use the voices of God, Devil and Buddha to fight each other, combined with his guts to actually dare to take the initiative and learn the Devil language. Using the Devil voice to contend against the God voice resulted in such a coincidental opportunity. These actions were simply reckless, not knowing how to write the death word. Even if others happened to have this opportunity, they would probably die from the power within the voices of God, Devil and Buddha before they even broke through their spirit embryo wall. Others didn't know the dangers lying inside. However, he was very clear about it. Was the power of gods and devils something a mortal could covet after? For a mortal, it was a road that led nowhere but death to covet the power of gods and devils. However, Qin Mu precisely succeeded in an unfathomable way, making village chief more or less puzzled. However, what he didn't know was that Qin Mu had been nearly killed by the battle between the God voice and the Devil voice. He was lucky that the jade pendant in front of his chest had protected his life. That was why he didn't die. Village chief thoroughly checked Qin Mu's advancement in his cultivation, revealing an expression of astonishment before covering it up and encouraging him. Moore, do your best in cultivating and don't disappoint us. Now that you have awakened your overlord body, you are a martial arts practitioner, and no longer a little child. Qin Mu solemnly nodded. At this time, the sky had already turned dark and the bonfire in the village lighted up. Old Ma and the rest started to barbecue strange beasts that they had caught in celebration for Qin Mu. Granny C scampered over and grabbed Qin Mu back. Village Chief Apothecary, come over as well, let's have a feast. You two can go ahead first. Apothecary and I will come right after you. After Village Chief saw Granny C and Qin Mu leaving, he said softly, Apothecary Moore's vital chi is extremely dense. Among the martial practitioners I have seen before in the spirit embryo realm, his cultivation is the greatest. Apothecary looked at the crowd celebrating around the bonfire and asked softly, how dense is it? My cultivation during my spirit embryo realm was similar or maybe even weaker than him. Village Chief said nonchalantly, what I meant was the cultivation at the pinnacle of my spirit embryo realm, whereas he had just entered the spirit embryo realm and will still continue to grow. Apothecary's body trembled tremendously and looked at him in disbelief as he cried out, to be on par with you while you were at your spirit embryo realm? What kind of existence are you? How could he? But he precisely did that. Village Chief had a tranquil expression and smiled. When his spirit embryo had not yet awakened, His vital chi cultivation was already stronger than those martial arts practitioners of spirit embryo realm, and even denser than mine when I was at his stage. Now that it has awakened, he will only become stronger. Striving to do his best for all these years and with the countless blood of the 4 spirits that you people had nourished him with, it's reasonable to have this kind of accomplishment. Apothecary was still extremely shocked and muttered, "However, to be denser than yours back then, you were the... I am no more than a disabled elderly." Village chief cut him off and smiled. "You can't use me to measure the teenagers nowadays. My only concern now is how to allow Moore to unleash the full power of his vital chi, since his vital chi does not have any attributes. Let us go over now and not make them wait any longer." Apothecary's heart slightly jolted. The only reason why vital chi could unleash their full power was because of attributes. Without any attributes in Qinmu's vital chi, it's only natural for him to be unable to unleash his full power. Even if he had awakened his spirit embryo and had a far denser cultivation than normal people, it was useless if he couldn't unleash his full power. As the two came to the bonfire, Def took out his iron ears and washed them in the wine before plugging them back into his ear holes. Pouring the wine into the bonfire, the fire immediately burned fiercely. Def smiled and asked, "Village chief, we had a test just now, and even though Qinmu had awakened his overlord body, but he was still unable to unleash the power of his overlord body's vital chi. With your wide knowledge, you definitely know how to unleash the power of his overlord body's vital chi, right?" At this moment, Apothecary could feel the head of the old man beside him becoming 3 times bigger than usual. Village chief raised his head and looked helplessly at Apothecary beside him. However, Apothecary turned his head to the other side and gave old Ma a toast. "Is Moore's overlord body strong or not?" Village chief asked. Def understood what he had said and praised. "Strong. His vital chi is extremely tenacious and hard to disperse." The others had the same feeling as well, and nodded their heads in succession. When Qinmu had clashed against senior brother Chu of the Lijiang's 5 disciples, they had already seen the extraordinary points of Qinmu's vital chi. With his vital chi in the small stick, senior brother Chu's treasure sword was actually not able to chop it, which meant that Qinmu's vital chi was exceptionally tenacious. Village chief asked again, "Is his vital chi dense or not?" Def replied, "Frighteningly dense. Even when I was at his realm, my vital chi was nowhere close to his." When he had finished, the rest felt the same way too. Qinmu's vital chi was too dense, way denser beyond belief. Even when his spirit embryo had just awakened, it was as if he had cultivated dozens of years. Village chief slowly guided the conversation patiently and asked, "Since his vital chi is so tenacious and durable, why can't it unleash its full power?" This time Def didn't continue on the same topic and instead gave a slap on his thigh, exclaiming, "That's right. Why is it so, Village chief?" Village chief almost choked to death by his answer, and felt like Def had given him 2 stabs in his chest. Luckily beside him, Mute became excited and started dancing around and gesticulating as he non-stop. "Mute is right." Def finally got it and said, "Moore's vital chi being so tenacious and dense yet is unable to unleash his full power. It means that the problem doesn't lie in his overlord body's vital chi. Our techniques aren't suitable for him. That's why he can't unleash his full power. The problem lies in us." As if a boulder was lifted from his shoulders, Village chief wanted to give a sigh of relief just as Def asked again, "Here comes another problem. How can we unleash the power of his overlord body's vital chi? We are all clueless, so with your wide knowledge, what's your wise opinion, Village chief?" Village chief wished that he could grow arms and strangle him to death. However, he did know some reasons regarding the reason why Qinmu was unable to unleash the full power of his vital chi. The vital chi of the 4 great spirit bodies had their own properties. For example, White Tiger vital chi had the properties of the gold element, allowing it to transform into weapons with great offense and defense. White Tiger vital chi could also transform into razor-sharp claws to tear apart the opponent and transform into a shield to block the opponent's attack. The Green Dragon vital chi had the properties of lightning, controlling lightning and healing abilities. Vermilion Bird vital chi had the properties of the fire element, which was fierce and overbearing. Apothecary and Mute the Blacksmith were this kind of spirit bodies. Both Apothecary refining his medicine and Blacksmith's furnace relied on their vital chi's properties. There was still Black Tortoise Vital Chi, which mastered defense and water control. There would also be water properties when their Vital Chi was exhibited. However, Qinmu's Vital Chi didn't have these properties, and that was why he could not unleash his full power. Even though his cultivation was strong, it didn't help him too much to increase his power. However, knowing the reason didn't mean that he knew how to solve it. "Mu'er, how does your spirit embryo looks like?" Village chief inquired Qinmu. Qinmu described about the strange spirit embryo in his Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure, and stunned everyone around the bonfire as they looked at each other in surprise of the human-shaped spirit embryo. This was the first time in the world they had actually heard of something like a human-shaped spirit embryo. Qinmu was also slightly bewildered and asked, "Granny, Grandpa Ma, don't your spirit embryos look like how you look when you were kids?" Granny C shook her head and sighed. "Nope. No wonder you are the overlord body. Even your spirit embryo is different from ours, how envious." Granny's spirit embryo is a white tiger spirit embryo. A little white tiger. "My spirit embryo is the green dragon," Olma said. Def replied. "My spirit embryo is the black tortoise." Mute began gesticulating again, saying that his spirit embryo was the vermilion bird. Village chief closed his eyes and went deep into his thoughts. The 4 great spirit bodies were gifted with their Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure innately opened and only required to awaken their spirit embryo in order to become a martial practitioner. Even if there were different spirit embryos among the 4 great spirit bodies, they were often similar and not much different from the 4 main categories. Some spirit embryos were not white tiger, green dragon, vermilion bird, or black tortoise, but they were still classified under this 4 categories. That was why the vital chi of the 4 great spirit bodies had 4 different kinds of attributes. Qinmu's spirit embryo was human-shaped and had no attributes. That was why it was harder for him to awaken, and to even unleash the full power of his vital chi. Village chief was deep into his mind trying to find a method to activate the power of the overlord body's vital chi, but even with his exceptional knowledge, he still couldn't make up his mind. Seeing his expression, Granny C suddenly realized what was going on and laughed. Village chief knew that Moor was an overlord body but didn't know the cultivation method for overlord body? Village chief's face turned slightly red and he nodded his head. All the villagers revealed expression of disappointment while Blind muttered, "You have the widest knowledge among us yet, and if even you don't know the cultivation method for overlord body, doesn't that mean that Moor's overlord body is going to be wasted?" Everyone around the bonfire fell silent. Butcher suddenly exclaimed, "Overlord body technique was created by a human, right?" Everyone looked puzzledly at him. Butcher chuckled. "If the overlord body technique was created by a human, why can't we create it ourselves? Even if we can't create it, Moor can create it himself. There's no one that I have ever given in to, therefore I managed to create my pig slaughtering knife skill. If all of you are frightened by the challenge in front, I would look down on all of you. Moor, don't let me look down on you." Qinmu nodded his head heavily and felt a rush of adrenaline as he shouted, "Don't worry, Grandpa Butcher. I will definitely not let you guys down." Butcher laughed loudly and patted him heavily on his shoulder. The rest also started laughing, causing the previously solemn atmosphere to vanish. Seeing this scene, the matter gnawing at Village Chief's heart unconsciously unknotted itself and he laughed loudly. Lying to them that Moor is the overlord body in order for them to have the motivation to live on made me bash my head into a brick wall by obsessively trying to cover up the lie. What I didn't expect was that they already had the motivation, and yet I am still here wrecking my brain out. With his worries resolved, he felt free both mentally and physically. Qinmu's arrival had motivated the villagers in disabled elderly village to live on, and had also motivated him to continue striving. Looking at him, Apothecary revealed a smile. Village Chief had not been so happy nor smiled like this for a long time. "I feel that we definitely need to push the overlord body to its limits, so that it would unleash the full power of its vital chi." Under the illumination of the bonfire, Butcher's face looked several times more sinister. One does not survive if he was never insane. Overlord body is stronger than spirit body, and its vital chi would definitely be stronger as well. The condition for his power to be unleashed would probably be stricter as well. That's why it definitely needs to reach its limits in order to force out its power. Cripple nodded his head. Moor's iron boots need to be thicker and the amount of iron weights have to increase to force him to run even faster. Blind tapped his bamboo cane and said, "His cultivation was much too relaxed previously. We'll need to up the tempo from now to be able to force out his potential." Old Ma replied, "That's right, we'll also have to work way harder to force out his potential." Mute gave a few hand signs and made a few noises. Qin Mu felt very touched, yet he had a bad feeling at the same time. He was moved at how zealous the elderly were on the matters regarding him, but why did they have to add "force out" in all their sentences? Apothecary narrowed his eyes and entered the discussion. "Supplement. We will continue to supplement him. Supplement him until his vital qi could unleash its full power. There are many rare and unique beasts and herbs in our great ruins which I could use to concoct spirit pellets and wonder medicines. My herb garden outside the village have all the various spirit herbs which are enough to supplement him until his skin would even leak spirit fluid out when you pinch him." "Apothecary, it looks like it will cost you a king's ransom for this." Everyone laughed.